topic, but it's, it has to be done. And so we're going to talk not so much about the technicalities, not so much about its impact on society and all these things, but specifically about the impact on NLP research. Right? So there's a lot of things that can be said, maybe research that is sort of possible now that wasn't possible before, things that were interesting before that are no longer interesting, impact on how funders are going to react, the sort of impact on public expectations, and sort of many more things, right? So we have a panel here, we have 3 panelists. We have Tom Kocmi from Microsoft, Carolina Scarton from the University of Sheffield, and Nico Potyka from Cardiff University. So they're going to make some opening remarks first, then we'll give them some time to disagree and argue, and hopefully we'll get pretty violent pretty quickly. Metaphorically speaking, obviously. And then I'll open up the floor to questions from the audience, so if you have any particularly controversial points you want to get across, or just questions from the panelists, then you have a chance after that. All right, so I'll ask Tom to start.
Hello everyone, so I'm happy to be here, thank you for inviting me. So I'm Tom Kocmi, I'm currently at Microsoft in Munich in Germany. I work as a researcher focusing on machine translation, and originally I'm from Czech Republic, from Charles University. And my main focus is on the evaluation, like how to evaluate models. So I'm not building models, I'm more like the one who's telling my other colleagues, researchers, that oh, your model doesn't work and this doesn't work from this point of view. And maybe like the first remark of like what, so now we are going to the new era of large language models, and oh yeah, one clarification. Those will be my opinions. Sometimes I will be the devil's advocate. It's not opinions of my employer. That's important. So we are going to the new era. One of the biggest problems is, of course, like the closed system of the current like ChatGPT and these models. But a lot of tasks are being kind of not solved. But I guess a lot of NLP tasks did not get a huge effort, many researchers focusing on them, resources, etc. And they did not even pick up with the transformer revolution, and now they are kind of still to be solved. And I think that now we are going even a little bit more towards the natural language generation as a task, because you can like with one single models, I don't want to say solve, but basically work with like kind of jump a lot of small tasks to new state of the art. So let's
yep.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Carolina Scarton from the University of Sheffield. I'm a lecturer, senior lecturer there. So before we go violent, I would like to put out there that I'm a purple belt jiu-jitsu person, so don't go violent with me. I think in terms of research and large language models, I think what we need now is to take a deep breath. Everybody's hyped. There is a massive hype on those models, and I have seen people, students talking about it as if it was a person, so they use he did it or she did it, and I'm like, well, that's not how we should be playing it, because if we do that as researchers, knowing that it's a tool, people out there will start believing that it's actually more than a tool. So we need to really, think about what we need to do or what we can do with this tool. Of course, it is, I would say it is a quite exciting moment to be in NLP. I don't look at it as very pessimistic, really. I think there is a lot of things that can be done now that we have larger language models. And that's really cool. So everybody should be really excited about it. It is a breakthrough. So if you think about, the previous breakthrough that we had is probably Google search. And that changed the way that we perceived information retrieval. And large language models is going to change the way that we do natural language processing. And that's fine with me. I'm happy with that. However, we need to look at that as a model, as it is. We here, or I don't know what you work with, but if you are working on NLP, you should understand what's behind that model, and you should know which are the capabilities and which are the problems and so on. And that's where we should be, really. So there is a lot that can be done. As Tom said, there is a lot of tasks that seem to be solved, quotation marks, sorry, I'm holding my glass, I cannot do it. But yeah, so you need to really take a step back and think, what can we do with this new tool? What can we do to achieve better results in NLP? And which are the new areas that are appearing? So one of them is definitely green NLP. We can't keep, burning servers just because just because they exist. There is a lot of things on ethics. There is a lot of things on biases. There is still a third of the world that is not connected and is not, don't even care about large language models like we are doing. So we need to really think about what can we do as researchers and to avoid this big hype, because the hype is bad for the funders. The hype is bad for governments because, they may just believe that everything needs to involve ChatGPT from now on if they don't fully understand. So we need to invest a lot, in my opinion, in terms of AI literacy and teach the people what the models can do, what they are about, but without, overselling it.
Hi, so I'm Nico Potyka. I'm not really an NLP expert. I'm working more on the reasoning side, so I guess I'm here from the outside perspective. Right, and yeah, from my perspective, I can see there's a lot of progress in NLP, and I can see that LLMs have a lot of applications, but from my perspective, it's not really that all of NLP is solved now. So, I understand that there are lots of applications of this, but in my opinion, this is really just something like a heuristic search engine. So sometimes you get a good answer, sometimes not, and I guess this is really nice for something like creative tasks, like creative writing, but if you think about something like medical diagnosis or reasoning in law, where people try to apply ChatGPT now, I do not think that the current state can really be used in this area. So there's all this work on prompt engineering now, and I can see that there's progress, but I don't really see this as a realistic application, because if you ask for a diagnosis of a patient, I cannot see how you would do prompt engineering there. If you get 3 different answers, then how would you decide what the correct answer is? So definitely I think this is interesting and there's lots of progress, but in my opinion it's not really that NLP is solved. And to start the discussion, you raised some other questions, like should we adapt the teaching in NLP now? And I guess it would be reasonable to say that some other heuristic approaches perhaps wouldn't have to be taught anymore now, because LLMs are more powerful in this area. On the other hand, I think classical computational linguistic tools are still really important, because these are basically the only approaches that are able to give you some analytical guarantees if this is needed, right? So that's basically my opinion.
Any reactions? It's pretty peaceful.
Yeah, I'd like to add on the point of the teaching side. I think it's still very important that we teach the basics of NLP and we don't stop teaching computational linguistics and traditional models and so on. Now more than ever, really, because we haven't been for, since the beginning of the neural models, or even before that, when we started with the statistical models, too focused on the model. How can we, let's just tweak a little bit its parameters, make the model bigger, and then get better results. And we departed a bit from the linguistics and understanding the problems and understanding what is behind the language and so on. So I think now more than ever, we need to go back and teach those aspects, because that's what is missing, and that's what is going to make the difference for the people learning NLP now, I think. Because the next revolution may actually be more hybrid, maybe require more knowledge on linguistics and not only on large amount of data. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Just to keep this going, there was something. Do you have something? Yes.
So I don't have much to say about the teaching. So from this point of view, I think I agree with the point that it should still be taught, like all the basics, and know a little bit of the history of how it was evolving, what we tried, because sometimes it's like reusing old ideas on the new techniques is important. But also there will be a lot of I think should we reflect on how much what we could teach differently or what we could do differently. So maybe the curricula have to be updated, or maybe on this topic a little bit. So yesterday we had a discussion with small group on so now you can put the whole paper to ChatGPT and give me a summary. And maybe like we should rethink how we are writing the papers. Maybe 5 years, 10 years from now, the structure of the paper will be slightly different. Maybe at the beginning you have plain English summary of like someone will read it in like super fast to understand your technique. The thing that everyone, when you get the new paper, you basically just skim the paper to understand the paper. Maybe this skimming could already be like first paragraph of the paper, because abstracts are like teasing, like, oh, look what we did. So maybe we actually, same as like with reinventing the writing of the papers, maybe some of the inventing of curricula, or how we teach the methods, or that could happen.
So maybe a point to pick up on this, I think something Carolina said about educating governments and funders, which I think is in my view, a real concern. Because if funders like EPSRC, they seem very prone to sort of make these kind of decisions and say, oh, NLP is solved, so we don't need to invest in this field anymore, and let's give all the money to some other fields. So to what extent do you agree this is a risk? Is there something specific we can do about it?
So I think here there is a big issue with the word solve. So from the evaluation point of view, a lot of tasks, a lot of test sets, a lot of benchmarks are just bad. And they test, so it's been awesome to use them 5 years ago when the quality of a given task was suboptimal, so the test set could actually test the particular features. But now we are getting, and it wasn't with the large language model. So for example, just with the large language models, it was already, we saw it with machine translation. The quality of machine translation for top languages on a news domain is just not solved. Like the number of errors it do is so small that you actually have to pick off like particle test news to look for the errors. So maybe the domain is solved, but that doesn't mean that the machine translation is solved. If you start doing like user-generated text, that's still problematic. Speech translation, that's still problematic. So, and I think this could be said about like most of the tasks, and especially the small tasks that now feel to be solved. They are solved on the small test sets, small resources that the given community had to develop. And maybe we need to actually rethink what is it tested? Is it testing what we want to? Or maybe it's different domain, or maybe, so not particular, I wouldn't say that particularly it's solved. And this is the issue that if governmental agencies will look, oh, this tested from 2015, like the ChatGPT has 100% accuracy, so like why do we care about this task? And especially if given test set is still the state of the art in the given field, and that, I guess, is the big issue in this discussion.
Right. Okay, so first of all, regarding the hype, so my feeling is over the last, say, 15 years, there was a lot of progress in AI, and in particular due to deep learning. I do not deny that. And the speed with which it's progressing is definitely significant, and it's improving. But then on the other hand, there are these hypes every 5 years, and every 5 years it's a different topic. So I think around 2008, there started this first hype in computer vision, where they made this progress in this, I forgot the name, but there was this big competition that they always have, right? And then they had a deep learning architecture there and made great progress, and it's continued for a couple of years, and everybody thought, everything is solved, and students do not have research topics anymore. But now there's not so much talking about that anymore, and I think everybody agreed now that there's still a lot to do. And then around 2013, I think the same thing happened in reinforcement learning with all these architectures that have been proposed by DeepMind, for example. And then another few years later, it started with BERT and all these transformers. And now last year, there was this big hype about ChatGPT and some other architectures. And again, students said there's basically nothing they can work on anymore and everything is solved. But I really do not think that this is true. And regarding funding, so it's true there are these hypes. And I guess to some extent it's actually beneficial for research because for some extent of time there will be more funding. On the other hand, I think people also start realizing this focus on black box models perhaps has its limitations. And so I feel that at the moment there's also more funding opportunity for more analytic topics where you actually work on topics like robustness and explainability and things like that. So at the moment, I think it's really good for funding, and I guess it really depends on how this evolves. I mean, there were these AI winters that everybody is talking about, right? So at the moment, it doesn't look like this will happen again, because at the moment it works really well, and there are lots of application in industry. So I guess at least for the next few years, we won't have any problems with funding. At least that's my opinion.
Okay, yeah, my opinion on the funding setting. Okay, so if I need to say two potential harms of this kind of models and this kind of hype around these models, I think they are the following, so at least for the research perspective. So one of them is, of course, the funders, and the funders may either see it as you said, so, oh yeah, we need to put more money on because people need to develop more knowledge. But they may also see, oh yeah, this is solved, so focus on something else. And I think that's a little bit of our own fault, and that's why I said we need to really take a deep breath and think about it, because the funders usually take the view of whoever examines the project proposals, right? There are experts out there. So if we experts examining project proposals are saying, oh yeah, they should use ChatGPT, this is solved, the funder is going to look at it and yeah, this is solved. So we as a community need to, whenever we are also reviewing the proposals, we need to be mindful of that. People may deserve the funding even though they are not focused on ChatGPT, even though they are, focused on a topic that perhaps ChatGPT is performing well, but not everybody can use the tool. I think an important thing as well that we should as a community be careful of, a lot of people is considering ChatGPT specifically as a baseline for a lot of models. And we shouldn't be doing it. It's not a baseline. A baseline is something that we understand, that we want to reach, that we want to improve on. ChatGPT is a product by OpenAI. So the way that we should be looking at it is the same way that we look at, I don't know, Google Translate, Bing, and so on, Microsoft Translate. So whenever we do that with machine translation, we look at them as online systems or like an upper bound of a product. Baseline, we can't treat that as a baseline. If you keep saying, oh yeah, ChatGPT is my baseline now, we are doomed. Because we won't be able to really beat it. We don't have access to the code, we don't have access to the data. So it shouldn't be a baseline. So that's the first thing that we as a community should start doing. The second harm is what you mentioned about the AI winter. And the AI winter happens when people loses confidence on the tools. And because there is this massive belief that ChatGPT can solve everything, everybody's using it, people are using it just for the sake of using it, creating tasks to use it. The problem is that people may, or the governments or funders, everybody else may start realizing that, oh, it's actually not that good. So, we invested all this money and all this time for something that is not that good. So people start losing the trust and the the impact of AI becomes lessen a bit, and then is when the funders may look, oh yeah, we gave you all this money, and we cannot even detect whether it's a cat or a dog on this image, so why bother? So that's basically the other harm that I can think of.
Yeah, I fully agree with this point that with the first, well, with both of them, that it shouldn't be used as a baseline in this way. And I think it's important that, like, anytime will be, especially in the, I think it's important role for the reviewers, that to be a little bit the guardians of like what could go wrong. So let's say that I'm the company X and I want to show that my product is the best. Like, what will I do? I will just collect all the test sets that exist, and I will fine-tune the final model on all the test sets. Then I will say that my cutoff date is 2022. So then, anyone will start using my product, and they will see, oh yeah, this solves everything. Like on this benchmark and this task, and it's super cool. And then, since the model is actually performing well, then people start using it in everyday life, and it will be just the loop will get stronger and stronger that it works that well. But well, did it solve the issue? Should it be considered baseline? Because like, yeah, the problem is like you need to in any task, like when you have a new model, then you write what's your training data, and you make sure that the test set is not there. We don't know this information with closed models, so that's big point. And the second point is that recently we saw a lot of the access to the GPT model. Right now, the GPT seems to be like the best working, so the access is problematic, and it's problematic to many layers. So it's not just about the money. So most of the universities can pay OpenAI for the access. The access is cheap, but getting the access is difficult. There is you cannot get infinite access you want. You want to pay them, you will not get the access because there is not enough GPUs to run for everyone who wants it. So there is a lot of throttling, which results that in last couple of months we saw a lot of papers that just evaluated on a couple of segments, subsample test sets, and did only small evaluation, and then showed like, oh, it's super good on the small test set. But that's completely breaking a lot of points in the science and in the NLP, and especially that goes with the hand that NLP doesn't use statistical significant testing. And if you evaluate on something like 50 segments, then is it statistical at all? And yeah, you can show. So let's put machine. There was a paper with machine translation, 50 sentences, two bullet points improvements or something. And like, well, on 50 sentences, that's random toss. Like that could be one sentence slightly changed. So that's like the big problem what reviewers should be careful about. And especially for all the grant proposals or the papers, that we should be a little bit careful and assume the worst. Assume that the GPT was trained on all the test sets till 2021 September. It was actually possibly even longer because the models being fine-tuned later with humans, and the humans could see the test set. So I'm not trying to say that this happened, but this could happen. The data, especially the older test sets, are available everywhere. Well, there was a paper last year showing that WMT test set leaked to Common Crawl, and that like till like 2015, it's in Common Crawl. So like basically, then the test set you shouldn't use, because if you train on Common Crawl, you likely train on the test set, and this could happen for most of them. And so it doesn't have to be like someone did it on purpose. It just like happened because the moment you release a test set, you should consider it spoiled.
This is a good time for questions, yeah.
Hi. Okay. So currently in NLP research, we usually try to create a corpus collecting data, for example, from social networks or digital libraries and so on. And the idea is to create human originally created data to train the models. Since ChatGPT appeared, and tools similar to ChatGPT, probably in the future will be harder to collect this kind of data. So what is your opinion to try to avoid this not really good future in order to create quality data, human created?
I will give this to the NLP experts.
I would ask is it a problem? So yeah, this is a bigger rabbit in the head, or what's the idiom? So in machine translation, we have this problem. A lot of percentage of the web page is being translated with the past empty systems, and the past empty system being problematic. So now we are focusing how we can find out which of the data we can actually use and which not. So we build detectors that detect empty translations. And we don't focus that much on, like, we don't mind the recent Google models. If something was translated by our models, it's suboptimal, but it's not that bad because the translation is quite good. But you still get on the internet data that been translated in 2010, and the empty system in 2010 was pretty bad. So the question is now, like, the ChatGPT actually is relatively good. So like now the bigger problem is that there is already a lot of system-generated data that are way worse. So when we get rid of those, then we will have the issue with like current models. And I don't have an answer how to solve it. It's just like the problem already exists with the past models. It's just now will be more vivid with the LLMs.
Yeah, I don't think I have a solution either, but I think like things like large language models, because they can generate fluency stuff and they perform quite well. They can actually be leveraged to build silver labels, right? So you can potentially in the future we're going to have ChatGPT as one of the annotators, right? In order to get more data. Which, for me, depending on the task and if you use it properly, it may be a good application. So I think it actually brings more opportunity than if you use it properly. So I don't have an answer to your question, but that's what the direction that I would go.
So that was a good point with the annotators. So there is another layer, like how much we believe that humans are good. And so I'm working with a human, so we do use humans in the loop to test our systems are actually improving. Humans are extremely noisy. Humans are not reliable. Basically, we pay them pretty well, and we would assume that they want to keep their job. But then their noise, the inter-annotator agreement is super low, and they are just like ranking if the translation is good. And when you look at it from their perspective, they are paid fixed amount per hour. They know that the task that they are given should be finished within an hour. If they manage to finish it in 45 minutes, they save 15 minutes. And so their incentive is to do as many annotations as possible. And the quality is going down. And those are professional translators, linguists that we work with. And it's not always that they would be trying to cheat the word or like make it easier. It's just like a lot of stuff is opinionated. It's like everyone thinks it differently. Sometimes you misread it. Sometimes so there is a lot of human noise. And maybe at some point, if we could actually, for some of the tasks, trust large language models, they could solve it on some annotation tasks where actually, another maybe example is that we struggle with human translators to the point that, yeah, we want to clean human translator translation to test against. So if we want the reference to test on. But then there was the experiment at Charles University where they asked 3 translatologists to prepare the best translation. They wanted to make the ideal, the completely best. So each of them have been working on their own translation, making the perfect translation. And they asked them to collaborate to find the one truth. They could not agree. They did really been fighting like what is better. And that's the point. So even like the professionals will not agree on a lot of stuff. And then you get to the point of like, if you're not paying that much attention to be that perfect, then maybe maybe now, for example, machine translation can translate better than standard agency you can get if you pay them. And with annotators, it's even less than maybe like the ChatGPT, large language models in general are just better than average human. Humans can get better. If they want, they get incentive. the bigger issue is that not always they have the incentive.
Just a comment.
Sorry.
So just a small comment about this. So I wonder if ChatGPT also increases actually the problems with annotating data. So I think last week I read an article where they reported that on some of these online platforms, people now started using ChatGPT to do the annotations for them. And then, of course, this just increases biases and introduces lots of other problems, right? So, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, if I can comment on that. Yeah, I think, as I said, we need to be mindful of what the system can generate for sure. But the humans are also not always reliable, and ChatGPT or any large language model is just dealing with the majority, right? So whatever most data it saw that is going to generalize. My suggestion on that would always be, you can't rely only on large language models. You could use that as one annotator. And we talk about bias as if it's something that is our enemy. But, humans have bias as well. And what we need is models that are robust to deal with it. And we need to understand the data well and start to move on from things that can just generalize, but can also expose those biases and just treat it, really. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah. So to start some controversy, das alte Jiu-Jitsu-Belt. So people always say when there's a problem with large language models or other machine learning models, then they say, humans have the same problem. But I don't find this argument very convincing. I mean, it seems to me that it's a very different bias in large language models because they do not have any awareness, despite of what some people suggest, right? It's just probabilistic models that somehow generate language, right? And if you have these biases in there, they will just generate these things systematically. So to me, it's a very different problem than what we have in humans. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I don't disagree with you. I think you can hear me, right, without this thing. Okay. No, I fully agree. You are completely right. I don't think we should really erase humans from, from the task. Humans need to be there, but sometimes we focus too much that are perfect, or we focus too much on agreement and the annotators need to agree and so on. And in fact, for most things we don't agree, and that's the beauty of it, So that's what I'm saying. So perhaps in general, this is beyond large language models or the use of large language models for this task. Perhaps we should move out of the idea that the best data set is the one with everybody agrees.
Yeah, right. No, but I guess the problem is when you have human annotators, then you have different human annotators with different biases, right? But if everybody uses ChatGPT now to do their annotations for them, then...
Yeah, the bias become ChatGPT based.
Some questions here first. Yes. Okay, can you, and then you? Of course.
Yeah.
And then I'm third.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much for the participation in the roundtable and the nice discussion. With respect to the last question, the last issue raised on agreeing on some task. I mean, I think that machine translation, you cannot find the perfect translation. You cannot decide. So it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult when you have a creative language. It's very difficult when you have a painting automatically generated. You cannot say this is better than this one. It's extremely complicated to do that because we will not agree. With respect to the founders, so going back a few topics, they should be informed by professionals and not by the media, because the media is doing this big buzz on these topics and fooling people. I mean, it's not possible. We should be better informed. There were several hypes ages ago, and a lot of European money invested in topics that then resulted in no good research or no what was expected to be created. So we need to be very careful with that. Unfortunately, governments are influenced by several actors, you know. So basically, I also like the comment I think that we have in your university, this issue of what are we going to do with ChatGPT? They will start cheat GPT. They will, how are we going to control? I think that we need to relax, as you said, and think, why not collaborate? I mean, we can collaborate with these models, and they can help us create something, and then we can inquire without any problem what they have been doing with that. They help people programming, so that's fine, but it has to be done with very much care, because, I mean, if you, let's say, if you teach programming on first year and then you allow students to just use a code generator, I mean, they will not learn the concepts, but maybe when they have already the basics and they go back and they use generative models in order to generate code, but they already know the concepts and they know what the system is doing, that's fine. So we need to be collaborative, I mean, with open mind and try to take advantage of these models. So thank you for your contributions, very nice round table.
Was that a comment or a question?
What do you think? ChatGPT.
Okay,
What's the comment? A comment.
You're next.
Yeah. Is that on you? Carolina, at the beginning you said that about a third of the world is not connected, and I wondered if you could briefly explain that. And then I'm thinking, as far as translation goes, maybe it's supported by the top 100 at Meta's NLP, top 200 languages. What about the rest?
Yeah, so when I said that number I got from the United Nations, so they did an estimation that a third of the world's not connected to the internet, meaning they don't have...
Huge.
Yes, it's a lot of people. I don't know how many billions, whatever. So yeah, it's a lot of people that are out there that don't have access to the internet. So they don't use Google, they don't use machine translation, they don't use ChatGPT, you know. So, you know, there's a lot of people that are not benefit from this. So that's what I meant, like, we are here, we are quite privileged, we are on a you know, European country with a lot of resources. As Tom mentioned, most of our universities can probably pay, not that much, but can probably pay a bit to use ChatGPT, do our research, life goes on. But how does research progress in Brazil, in Africa, in some Asian countries? So there is, I think these models or this kind of a revolution is adding another barrier on how research is done. And that's more or less what I meant. That's how I got the number, where I got the number from.
Yeah.
From 2021, I think it was a report.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. I wanted to go back to the point about 2 points actually: the funders and the collaboration with the models such as ChatGPT. So one issue with the funders is that actually even who is considered an expert may not be an expert in NLP. So this has been my experience with being on recent panels, that they may not even be experts in machine learning or AI, and they would still be evaluating proposals in NLP. So this is a problem because they, you know, I have seen esteemed colleagues in other fields thinking that summarization, for example, is solved. So without actually working with NLP, you don't actually understand what are aspects that are still remaining as challenges. And so I think we need to define what the challenges are and make these known. So I don't know how we do this. Maybe this has to be done through the ACL kind of senior administration or some kind of white paper, but we need to educate not only non-expert but also experts about the state of the art in our field. So that, and I have seen some recent panels. It's very disconcerting. And the other point I want to make is about, so I agree that we should be leveraging these models, but what I don't agree with is, one, the fact that we really don't know how they've been trained. We don't have any control over the parameters, the weights in these models. And so I was wondering whether what we should be advocating is more to be working with more open models such as Alpaca, rather than jumping into the ChatGPT wagon, paying, to essentially help them improve their model, which I have a huge issue with. Why should we should be having a free academic license if we're helping them produce a better product. So again, I think this should be part of the let's sit and think that you very nicely advocated, Carolina. That why should we be jumping on this wagon? Yes, we want to leverage these models, but is this the best way of doing it? Just going ahead and paying subscriptions. So yeah, I was just thinking about how we can take action on these and what your thoughts are.
If I can start, sorry, on the point with the funders, and I think you made a really good point. Experts are usually not experts.
Experts are usually not really experts. But I think we need to do a clean on our own house as well, because there is a lot of people in NLP that is also panicking. And even though they are experts, even though they understand the problem, they are still also, contributing to the hype. And that needs to stop now. I mean, if the more papers we get that tells that the problem is solved, at the ACL level and so on, the more problematic things become. So we need to have a community effort to not only inform the experts, but also clean our own house. So that would be my first point. The second one about using ChatGPT, I fully agree. I couldn't agree more. We need to, honestly, my personal opinion is, as researchers, we should treat that as as we treat Google Translate for machine translation. It shouldn't be a baseline, it shouldn't be used widely, it should be treated with, it's a product. Mm-hmm. For research, we need to use open models, and that's that. There isn't a question on that. I also have a lot of problems of sending data to OpenAI. I don't think we should. I think we should really think about which kind of data we are sending. So, for example, when you work on social media data shouldn't be there. But there are still a lot of people sending data without thinking. So.
Yeah, we can't use mental health data with ChatGPT.
Exactly. But still, people are going to do it, and that's the problem. That's a major problem for me.
Let me play devil's advocate. So let's say that, for example, within the European Union, there is now discussion that they will make some rules for AI, and then actually we would solve this problem with the privacy of the data. So let's say that it's kind of solved, we could trust it. If we would also find out what it was trained on and all these points, would you still say that we shouldn't use it in the papers? You shouldn't use it as a baseline, or should we still treat it as a product in this way? If
it is a product, if people are paying to use, and even if it's open, we cannot improve the model. So for me, a baseline is something that you can improve upon. Mm-hmm. So that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I also think that, so now it's a big wave with ChatGPT. Within a couple of months, maybe half a year, maybe a year, open models will catch up. I don't think. That was the Google's internal memo that basically they investigated it, and OpenAI doesn't have any moat in this way. They got a little bit jump start, but sooner or later the open models will catch up. So I'm on the same So maybe like when I mentioned about the legislative point of view, so what are your opinions? Should the large language models be somehow restricted? Should there be some committee who says this research group can research large language models, this one doesn't have license, so this university cannot do the research? What do you think on this? Like, there's a lot of discussion about like how to legalize it and what make the rules and etc.
Okay, the question's for me.
Okay. Oh my God.
Just maybe we're out of time, but I guess
Oh,
you can allow sort of a final short
Okay, final
comments.
remarks on this. I don't believe regulation is the way to go. That's my, as a high level answer, that's my point. I think we need to really be careful with that, because companies have the money, have the lawyers to get regulated. They will, use the words, the right words, to get the regulation passed, while we universities, we researchers don't. Main researchers on the global south. So we are just going to increase the barriers, the disparity between the groups, while the key stakeholders that are doing, research or building projects without really thinking about the ethical issues and so on, they are still going to get regulated. That's my point.
Yeah,
Okay.
as a non-expert, I just agree with everything you said.